Hi and welcome back to Event Advice. I believe we're on episode 24, so aren't we doing well? My name's Matt Allen, CEO of Crowdcoms, and we are joined this week by Lee Jack, the Commercial Director at Crowdcoms. Hello, Lee.
Hello, Matthew. How are you?
Yeah, good. Very well. Looking forward to this one. I've got some tricky questions for you.
Ooh, we like tricky questions.
And I've deliberately made them even trickier because it's Lee here this week. But we're going to be talking about the modern landscape of corporate events. So I think if it's okay, what we'll do is just start off by just giving a bit of a description of how we perceive
a corporate event. What is a corporate event?
What is it?
Do you want to take that? Do you want me to take that?
You go.
Okay. So I would always consider a corporate event to be an internal conference to a certain extent. So anything which is funded by an organisation, bringing together, for the most part at least, their staff, stakeholders, trying to align expectations, trying to get people on board with core messages, or perhaps if it's regional or sector specific, it's going to be more about getting synergy between those workforces. So perhaps networking focused, but quite often it is aligning all of the cogs from different departments to make sure they're all working towards a common objective.
And we probably at Crowdcoms, it's kind of our bread and butter, isn't it?
It certainly has been. We've been going for a number of years now, and I would say internal conferences is always been the backbone of what we do. Perhaps largely because of the way we're structured as an organisation, the flexibility and customisation of the technology we provide. But it's very much been what the go-to for our core client audiences, those internal conferences.
Is there a kind of a size of event? And we know when we normally talk about size, it's audience size. Is there a typical that you find in corporate events, or is it big businesses, big events? Is it as simple as that?
I wouldn't say it is as simple as that, because it can be an internal corporate event can be anything from, as we mentioned a moment ago, regional, sector specific, department specific. So that might be 100 people aligning on a core aim that they're trying to all get together and absolutely nail. Or it can be a company-wide event. And then it very much is, how big is the company? Could be an all-staff event with 5,000 people, or in some cases we see the 20, 30, 40,000 people where you might have senior leaders in the room and then a large remote audience joining from all over the globe, getting together in that way.
Now, we went into the period of time, the pandemic, which was, as unpleasant as it was for everyone involved. Where's the kind of landscape settled afterwards? Because we were obviously all virtual.
Yes.
Where's it settled now? So
where has it settled? After pandemic, I think there was, or when we were able to, big rush, get everybody back in person, get everyone together. It's no different than us as a team. We're really excited about getting back on site, seeing our clients, getting involved in those in-person events. But we saw a massive move back to trying to be 100% in person. And what we've seen certainly over the last 12, 18 months or so, is a little bit of a transition back to hybrid in some cases.
Yeah.
And then actually more recently, a re-emergence, if you will, of the virtual events. And I think that's because we were forced to do it during the pandemic, and therefore you've got your choice taken away, so you resent it to a certain degree. But there were positives of delivering an event in a virtual way. Cost savings, reach, productivity of your staff, not all having to travel for multiple days either side of the event. So we're certainly seeing, for some events, a real emergence of hybrid and virtual. But what I would say is it's a real varied mixture. There's not a one size fits all, particularly for those internal conferences. I think very much is a case of who's my audience, how big is my audience, what content are we trying to cover, and then what is the best format of that event. So we're seeing a nice mixture.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you gave the different factors we see about why events take place virtually or in a hybrid perspective. I think the sustainability angle was pushed for a long period of time. And I don't mean pushed as an unpleasant way, but it was a driver for that behaviour. The pandemic was obviously a huge driver. Increasingly, I'm seeing reach being the reason. It's just making sure that we can get as many people involved in the conversations as possible so that we can influence better change and have greater collaboration. Well, that seems to be more common now, I think.
Well, absolutely. I think if you go back to the point of what is an internal conference or what is a corporate event. It's trying to get everybody on board, working to the same common objective, and everybody matters. So whatever your role is, however senior or perhaps junior, whether you're in sales and marketing or you're in production, you've all got to be working towards that common objective. And if you're only bringing your 500 senior people together and aligning on those requirements or on those objectives, it leaves a lot of emphasis on them to pass that messaging on. And we know when you allow other people to pass the message on, it can be interpreted differently. So you've got to be able to communicate directly with everyone.
And that's where the technology comes in.
Exactly.
It's a vehicle for enabling conversations. It's a vehicle for enhancing networking efficiency and scope. And that's where we really come into our own. Quick plug. When I say technology, I mean everyone, not just crowd comms, but you could certainly start with us. Okay, and so now we're going to move on to some challenges in the modern landscape. So, I mean, people have become very fragmented in the way they work because we're hybrid, aren't we? So I think people have got used to sitting behind a Teams call and getting together in person. Are we seeing that being reflected not just in the workplace, but in the event kind of place as well?
This has been an ongoing trend that I'll talk about briefly now. Is we're spending money, time, energy, bringing people together for a particular event, whether it's one day or a multi-day event. But how do we get extra value and make that last a little bit longer? So we've got some more pre-event engagement, whether it's pre-event tasks, whether it's a webinar in the lead up to the events, and then the same again afterwards. So I think that ties into to a degree with the workspace we're seeing, where it's more hybrid and everything else, is trying to really make sure that we've got longevity in an event. So it's not just a 1-2 day event, it turns into more of a community. We've got these people together, we've got these stakeholders on board. Let's really maximize the opportunity we've got now.
So if we're trying to kind of lengthen the benefit of a piece of technology, it's actually lengthening the conversations and what have you. That will tie in quite closely to integrations, because businesses will make their business-based decisions in their CRM. So how are we being mindful of, from a corporate event perspective, what are the kind of challenges that we're seeing, or how are we being mindful of solving those problems?
Well, certainly you touched on integrations there. The bigger the organisation, quite often the more existing pieces of technology they've got in place. And that might be event technology, but CRMs, marketing platforms. And what they're looking to do more and more, it becoming an absolute essential requirement, is if we're bringing in a new piece of tech, it has to work seamlessly with our existing tech stack. So integrations, again, not to push crowds, it's been at the forefront of what we've been focusing on with our corporate partners, because if we understand that you've got this data, you then need to leverage it, whether it carries on being as part of your event tech stack or as part of your wider software suites.
Where we used to historically see some smaller corporate organisations using multi-stack technology, and I suppose the larger kind of enterprise, plus 10, 20,000 employee organisations tending to use a single piece of technology that mirrored that, connected with our CRM. Are we still seeing it as clear cut as that, or are we seeing small businesses go for one?
I think there's becoming more awareness and more availability of a single piece of technology which can do more of their requirements. I don't think there's one that fulfills everything, then we'd be slightly misleading if we said there was. But if you're looking at, I want to make sure I've got a really joined up, seamless experience from my very first email communication, sign up, getting all of the promotion about the event, participating, looking at the content, building out my schedule, networking, then post-event I want to look at resources and videos on demand. If you can fulfill 80, 90% of it or all of it with one piece of technology, I think more and more people are saying, well, why wouldn't I? And there are providers that can do that now. So it then becomes really just integrations with CRMs and things of that nature, which I'm seeing a real essential requirement for when you're looking at event tech.
They're the ones that we're constantly working on and improving at the moment in terms of the requests, isn't it? It's more CRM based. I suppose the other thing is just to consider data security and data security concerns. I suppose if you look at a trade show event, you think, blimey, there's lots of data being moved around. We've got people coming in. Is data more important there? But actually, it's absolutely critical in the corporate environment, isn't it? And we tend to be working with big corporates as well.
If you look at the implication of not having security and best practice when it comes to managing your data.
Yeah.
So whether it is an all-staff conference or one of those smaller, corporate or non-corporate, what's the damage to your reputation if you do have a breach or anything of that nature? So I think data security should be at the forefront of what everybody considers.
Data security is important. It's also about getting people onto a piece of technology really efficiently. So I think particularly corporate, we've got the advantage of like SSO,
Yes,
which is used frequently, which is certainly going to help onboard people really quickly and efficiently. And then because you're working with big corporates and small corporates, you've got the scalability kind of ramifications as well.
It's a very valid point, because going back to different pieces of technology, crowd comms, when the things I'm using day to day to do my job, it's all got single sign-on, all through Azure. So then when we're logging into our Crowdcom's internal community platforms, our resource centers, which we all use our event platform for, it's all repurposed, optimized for that use case as well. Single sign-on every time. I don't ever use my password. It's always free.
No.
Single sign-on, and I've got my authenticator app when I need to. So I think that becomes that frictionless entry point becomes more and more important if you want to make it scalable and a genuine value across events and wider productivity at your organization, not just for an event.
Surely that's why people are increasingly wanting to find one platform that ticks as many boxes as possible, because you click on with single sign-on, you go into the suite, you do your event-based decisions, who you meet with, the content you engage with, the things that you really enjoy, and then it's going to push that information back into the CRM as well. So it's an easier journey to manage.
As an organizer, as a marketer, as somebody who's responsible for data security, for less platforms to manage and oversee, the easier your life is. But actually the thing which I enjoy the most is when you're doing it at scale, it's the learnings you get to put back into place. Because if you're doing something once a year, you're going to learn from it, you might implement those improvements next time around. But actually, if you're doing events on a regular basis, small, medium and large, different tiers of events, that's where you really optimize how best to use a piece of technology, whether it's Crowdcoms or another piece of tech. How am I going to get the absolute most out of this to support with my core objectives of delivering this messaging, to drive networking, to drive engagement, to get the data from my audience, to learn from it. Only by doing it at scale do you really maximize your return on investment and your impact day to day in the business.
And do you think that, I was talking about global reach, you've got a global organization, which many of these corporates are. Do you think, to make sure we've got consistency across regions, that we address like cultural differences, also time differences as much as anything else? Are hybrid events becoming the way forward, or how are you seeing that?
Are they becoming the way? Again, I still very much lean into, you look at the specific purpose of the event. Who is your audience? What message? Sometimes it is going to be appropriate just to get everyone in the room to align with these particular stakeholders, get them together and get that messaging right and move forward positively. There's going to be other ones where the hybrid setup is going to be absolutely spot on. And then there's other scenarios where actually we've got a message which we know is going to be pertinent for the wider company. So it might be thousands, tens of thousands of people. And it's actually only an hour webinar. And just making sure that there's buy-in, some tasks related to it to make sure they've not just watched, but they've understood, and perhaps certification afterwards to reward them for the fact that they've joined, they've participated, they've learned, and now they're ready to move forward in a positive way. So it really does depend on the format, not necessarily just the format, because the format is actually dictated by the why.
So what I'm going to do now is throw you under the bus.
Go on.
Big style. And ask you to provide some examples, and obviously we haven't given you any warning of this, examples of some successful corporate event strategies. So are you able to think of a hybrid success story made when a company has seamlessly incorporated virtual and in-person elements to drive higher engagement and adoption?
Certainly. What I've seen a lot of, giving one example is more challenging because I'm not allowed to name them, but I've seen lots of them where they've done a full in-person day event, So and this might be a core audience, and then you've got those people engaged in the room. Then the second and the third days, you've got still those 50, 150, 200, 300 core stakeholders in the room, but you get a wider audience to join and participate online, and not as a secondary audience. They've got the same access on day 2 and 3. Perhaps you've got the super secretive information day 1, but now you've got the wider company getting involved.
Engaging the same content at the same time.
Exactly. So their results are all brought together, shown on the screen at the same time. They have the same networking opportunities, access to the same resources and documents where appropriate, of course. But that type of structure of in person with your senior stakeholders, and then not forgetting about and getting the rest of the people who are going to have as much or collectively more impact on the success of the organization, making sure they're feeling a part of it. So that setup works really well. So you're almost doing fully in person, followed by a hybrid setup on the subsequent days. That'd be the one I'd go with.
The next one's asking me to talk about engagement and using interactive event platforms, but actually I think that's a little bit too obvious. What I'd like you perhaps to focus on or just discuss is how we focus on successful outcomes pre-event to ensure that when we use tool like gamification or Q&A or session participation, we know that it has validity.
Well, there's a couple of things. For best events is where you plan ahead of time. And I know that sounds obvious, but quite often tech can come in quite late in the day, and we're very flexible. So with a matter of weeks' notice, you can spin something up which is really personalized. It's got networking, engagement, everything that you're going to need. But when you plan a little bit further ahead, you can actually do a soft launch with some pre-event tasks, get buy-in beforehand, and actually take that data, listen, and implement specific sessions based on what your audience want to hear about, particularly when it's annual conferences, where it is getting everybody together, not just to align on what you want to hear about or what you want them to be aligned on. What do they want to hear about? And I think that pre-event engagement then could be much more than just a box-ticking exercise of completing a challenge and getting some points. Can define the event, The same with post-event. When you get those surveys and you get all of the responses afterwards, you get an export of all of the questions that have been asked. You see the ones which have the most engagement, so you know the type of the main, not whether it's concerns perhaps is the wrong word, but the things which are most important to your audience. Learn from it. Let that shape future events. Let that shape your training for next rounds of people that you want on board as an organization. So
that's really lengthening the life cycle of your technology.
Exactly.
That's making your technology part of your business-based decision making, which is what we should be doing.
100. It's where it gets. Tech should facilitate the objectives. That's the only reason for it. If it's not enabling you to do those things more efficiently, then it's just there as a nice to have. And I think it should be, when it's done right, it really elevates everything that you're trying to do.
It should make it easier. It should make it more efficient, which is much the same as easy, but it's slightly different. And it should actually make it more cost effective. More cost effective, and should allow you to learn and improve. So if you tick those things off, you've done a fabulous job. I'm going to go back to the book here. Eco-conscious event planning. So an example of a company opting for paper-free badging, scanning, eco-friendly badging, but also tree planting initiatives. So very quickly on the tree planting initiatives before you answer it. I know that's considered by some, it's like greenwashing almost. It's secondary to making. So actually making the right business decisions should be ahead of then planting trees. It's like, well, we're doing lots of bad stuff, so let's plant trees to counter it. I think planting trees can only be a good thing if you're going to be having something that has an impact on the environment. It can only be positive. But any examples of that? Well, there's that example that you've just given there, which is leveraging our event game, so you get points for completing different challenges. So whether it's treasure hunt related, getting around the venue, finding out pieces of information which are going to enable you to be more effective at your job, or learning about new products or services that the organization has recently released, which you are then going to have to be able to support perhaps your clients with, or whatever the scenario might be. So in lots of events setups or ongoing community platforms, you get points, you work your way up a leaderboard to get a prize of some sort of description. What we're seeing, not more and more, but what we've always seen and not always had a quick solution for, is
through corporate policies, we're not allowed to bribe or give out prizes. So what we're seeing a lot of people doing linked to sustainability, saying actually based on how many points that everybody collectively gets, and you can go down to team based, regional based, how many points we get, we're going to plant 1 tree per point, and then looking at using the customization of a platform to show trees as the rewards rather than just trophies, or it can be donations to sustainability charities and things of that nature. So it's not just giving out prizes, it's actually trying to get buy-in to a corporate message.
But that can only be positive. And actually, there was more energy and enthusiasm around that than there was any of the gamification initiatives that we've driven that are more traditional. So it was really, really positive.
It was. I mean, I've seen some energy around some of the traditional ones.
We've had some silly ones.
It was but that one had massive buy-in. I can't remember the exact numbers, which is poor. But there was. Well, actually, I didn't know we were going to talk about it, so it's not that poor.
No, it's not.
But there was lots of trees planted as a result of it.
Thrown you under the bus.
Lots of trees.
When me and Will Custard, product director, at some stage, we talk about some of the initiatives we're looking to enable you to benchmark sustainable decisions in the event planning process. So how are people going? What impact does that have on your carbon footprint, your hotel, your food choices? So there's things that we're working on there that will proceed before the event, enable you to make more sustainable decisions. But then we've got these tree planting initiatives. If we get both of those things right, I really feel that we're doing as much as we can. And then to wrap this up, looking to go over some practical tips for corporate event success. I suppose the first one, Lee, is make sure that everyone knows how your technology plays a part in it. So invest in training of your team that are implementing the technology.
Well, yeah, I think it's tips. I always start with the why should dictate the how. So why are we doing it? Why are we bringing these people together? Then how do we leverage the technology to help facilitate better outcomes? You look, it doesn't matter, with the best will in the world, without a thought through multi-stage promotion plan which builds value, not just for you as a company but for the end user. What's in their benefit for getting on this piece of tech and getting involved in the lead up, during and afterwards? So I think those two are critical. But then at a corporate level, when you're looking at enterprise rolling out across multiple events, across different use cases, make sure you're learning after each event, implementing best practice for the upcoming event series, so that you're always improving, always getting more, not just from a technology perspective, but getting more out of your events. You're allowing that to help shape your business decisions ultimately.
So if we get all of that right, and for example, today we've got a big car manufacturer doing a big launch of one of their vehicles. Looks really nice, actually.
It does look good.
Super exciting. Looking at the product and looking at what they're doing a great job. So if we do all of that right, what we should see is massive success that leads to growth. So how important is it that you choose a technology company that are agile and can grow as you grow?
Yeah, 100%. I think goes back to saying, is there a provider that ticks every single box out there? Probably not. But what you will find, and I'll do a plug, certainly in crowd comms, is if you've got specific requirements which aren't in that existing suite, you need to make sure you're working with people who are collaborative, will listen, are prepared to understand the value of a new proposition, and then support you at implementing it. Because there are going to be, we learn from our clients all the time. We shape our roadmap both from what we know is going to evolve our product offering, but also from the feedback from our clients. So I think that collaboration between technology supplier and yourself as an organization is absolutely critical to long-term success.
Third one I have on the list, and we've covered it already, I think, in enough detail, is integrate connected tech solutions. So make sure that you can follow that journey through, whether it be with one solution or multiple solutions, that they are relaying the information that's important to you and feeding it back to your data provenance. Plan for your hybrid audiences is number 4, making sure that we focus on adoption and getting as much reach as possible where it's appropriate. This isn't me saying always do a hybrid event. This is about leaning into what you said earlier, isn't it?
100%. And it's if you're going to do whether you're going to do it virtual, in-person, hybrid, you've got to do it right. Tech is quite often a very small part of a larger event. but if it's not done right, it can have such a detrimental effect. So it's an essential part of it, so visible to the audience, even more so when you get into virtual and hybrid, although it's still a core part of it regardless of event format. So I think making sure that you get that bit right. If you're going to do hybrid, don't do it as a second sort of thought and you've got a secondary audience who don't get the same care and attention in the lead up, during and afterwards. I think that's absolutely essential.
And the final one, it's always a really important and I think a positive one to end with, is data being key. That final point is, how are we making sure that we've got that real-time information to make informed decisions and validate the success of the event, which all technology companies should be absolutely focused on doing, and I know that we are.
Yes.
It has been brilliant to have you here today. Thank you for talking about it. Sorry for throwing you under the bus.
No worries, mate. No worries. It was a little bit wobbly for 1 minute, but we got through it. No, thank you very much for having me. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. We'll be back again soon with another episode of Event Advice.